All right, last lesson in chapter 9 on simple interest. I'm going to say this many, many times as we go through this lesson. You have to know this equation. Okay, you can probably hear all that noise. I'm running out of battery, so I got to charge up. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. I'm doing this one. It's noises and I don't know how to turn them off. Okay, you have to know this formula, this equation. I equals PRT. So I am on page 490. I'm going to go through what each of these letters stands for and then show you how to solve for each one of them. And there are a couple of very important things you have to know as we go through this, so please pay attention. All right, what is I? I stands for interest. So let me see if I can explain interest to you. Not like something is interesting, but interest is what you pay or what is paid to you if you borrow money or loan money to someone else. So if you asked your parents for $300 because you want to buy some, I don't know what costs $300, some game or some computer piece or something like that, they could say to you, yes, we will loan you the $300, but we are going to charge you interest. So each month that you don't pay it back, you have to also give us 5% of the money that you have borrowed. Okay, that's what interest is. Banks will do this. Lending agencies, like if you borrow money to buy a house, you don't just borrow the $200,000 that you need or more, but you also pay them a fee to borrow the money. So you can ask your parents, but in most cases you end up paying, oh mercy, a lot more than what the price tag on a house is, or even on a car, and that's the interest payments. So that's what that stands for. And you will see a simpler definition, a lot less wordy in your book. It says that it's the amount earned or paid for the use of the money. Okay. Now, what does P stand for? This is the principal. It is spelled the same way as Mr. Morris or Miss Walters, the principal, but it doesn't mean the same thing. This is the amount of money that's being borrowed or loaned out. So just like a second ago, I said that you might ask your parents for $300. That would be the principal. Okay. R is the rate. Remember I said to you, you might have to pay your parents 5% of the money that's owed them. That's the rate, the interest rate. Now, here's a rule that you've got to keep in mind. The rate is mentioned or listed in percents, but when you use this formula, you have to change it to a decimal. Don't forget that. Last thing, T stands for time. Maybe you tell your parents that you want to borrow $300 at 5%, but you will pay it back in 1 year. Here's the very important thing that you have to know about time. In this equation, it's always listed in years. Okay? So if you tell your parents you'll pay it back in 6 months, the number that would go into this equation for T would be 0.5 because 6 months is 1/2 of a year. Okay? That's a lot of information. Unfortunately, I have to clear the board off to give you some examples, but I will remind you of all of these things as we go through this. And again, it's all listed there for you on page 490 as well. Okay, let's look at example number 1. Tim's parents loaned Tim $100 so he can buy a radio-controlled plane. So the $100 is the amount borrowed. Okay? They will charge Tim 5% simple annual interest. There is another type of interest called compound. You'll learn about it in the 7th grade. All right, so we have our principal, Our rate is going to be the decimal 0.05. And the rest of the word problem says, what will be the total amount that Tim will owe his parents in 1 year? Okay, now in 1 year, so I'm just going to put a 1 there for the years, the time, okay? When we work out this math, we're going to come up with the amount of interest, not the answer to the problem, which is what the amount is that he owes. So I'll come back to that in a second, but we have to find out what the interest is that he's being charged. So I'm going to slide over here and get another calculator. I'm actually upstairs in my husband's office tonight. Okay. So into the calculator, 100 times 0.05 times 1 doesn't change anything. And so we find out that I equals $5. Now he borrowed $100 and he has to pay $5 in interest by the end of the year. So the answer to the question, how much he will owe, is $105. All right, I hope that makes sense. I'm going to do some more examples. Feel free to email me if you're having trouble with this. I will go over it more with you individually if necessary. Let's look at example 2. You deposit $600, so that's the principal, into a 6-month certificate of deposit, sometimes called a CD, but not the kind you listen to. So our rate, we don't know yet. Our time is going to be half of a year, so 0.5. All right, that's not the rate, that's the time. After 6 months, the balance is $618. Okay, now you've given this money to a bank for a certificate of deposit, and when you get it back out after 6 months, you've earned $18. So $18 is the interest, the money that the bank paid you to borrow your money. Okay, so what we're actually looking for here is the simple annual interest rate. Okay, something different. You know how to do this. We've already done this when we did algebra, but I will work through it with you step by step. 18 equals, we need to combine like terms here. So into my calculator, I'm going to hit 600 times 0.5, and hopefully you realize that that's 300 and an R. Now, how do I get my variable alone? I divide both sides by 300. This is why it's so important that you understood the algebra chapter that we did, because it really applies to almost all of math that you will do from now on. 18 divided by 300 is 0.06 equals R. The question says, what's the interest rate? So I need to turn it back into a percentage by moving the decimal point 2 places to the right. It was a 6% interest rate that your CD had. All right, moving on to example 3. All right, you put $750 into a certificate of deposit. So same kind of problem as last time. Our principal, our amount is $750. Your simple annual interest rate is 4%. Changed to a decimal is 0.04. So I'm going to multiply that here for my R, my rate. Then it says you receive a check for the interest at the end of each year. How long will it take? So what are they asking you to find? How long? That's the time. They're not telling you that part. How long will it take to earn $150 in interest? Okay, so they've told you every piece of this puzzle, of this equation, except for the time, and they're asking you, how long will it take? Something that I have said multiple times in the past is plug in what you know. You know the principal, it's $750. You know the interest rate is 4%. You know the interest is $150. What you don't know, what you're being asked, is how long, what's the time. So you're going to solve this one the same way you solved the rate one. You're going to combine like terms, which is 750 times 0.04, and you will get, excuse me, 150 is still over here. 750 times 0.04 is 30, and we have a t. So you should know what to do at this point to get the variable alone. And hopefully, excuse me, you would see that without using a calculator, 150 divided by 130 is 5 equals t. So what does that mean? If 5 equals t, how would we answer the question? The question was, how long will it take to earn $150 in interest? 5 what? Months? Hours? Remember, time is always in years. It would take 5 years to earn that much interest. That is how you do example 3. All right, I think I have time for guided practice number 1 before this video runs out. If you would like to pause the video, try to solve example 1 and then come back. You see how you're doing on this. All right, number 1, you deposit $500. That's your amount, your principal, into an account that earns 6%, change to a decimal, 0.06, simple annual interest. What will the account's balance be after 2 years? After 2 years. So we have each of these parts. Now this one is similar to example 1. The question is, what will the balance be? Not what is the interest, but I have to find the interest first. So I think these are the easiest because you just multiply everything out. 500 times 0.06 times 2 is going to equal 60. So the interest will be $60. If I have put or deposited $500 into an account and it's still sitting there after 2 years, the interest would be added to it, and the new balance, the amount I would have in the bank, would be $560. All right, I think I better not try to push doing another one on this video. I'm going to post this one. If you're watching this on Tuesday morning, hopefully by the time you get done, I'm going to shoot for having part 2 of the video. If you need a little bit more instruction, I'll go over guided practice 2 and 3 and pick some from the chapter, from the lesson, to go over as well in the next video. But it is 9:30 on Monday night, so I'm going to wait until Tuesday morning to post the second video. But I am hopeful that it will be up no later than 10 o'clock in the morning. So if it won't be, I'll send out a note. I'll put a note on Google Classroom as to why it can't be. I am having some work done at the house tomorrow, but hopefully I'll be able to do that for you. So tune back in tomorrow, which you're probably watching this on Tuesday morning anyway, but hopefully by the time you finish this one, the second one will be up. And again, email me if you have any questions.